Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Ian Darke, Craig Burley, Stevie, Nicol. Apparently Jurgen Klopp does play golf. That's what I've been told. Google confirmed it, so it must be true. All right, there was a question in the main show as to whether Jurgen Klopp played golf. Maybe not, because he's taken on a new role as head of global soccer for the Red Bull Group. For Stevie, you can only renew 2 contracts and one has to leave for free. Salah, Virgil or Trent?
Well, you signed Salah and Virgil. Partly because you've got a replacement in Bradley. Not quite at the level, certainly going forward as Trent, but a better defender. So straight off the bat, if he does go, then you have a replacement. Obviously, if you can get a better replacement, you do that. But I would, yeah. If I get 2 out of 3, Salah and Virgil are the ones I sign.
Craig, in regards to the whole Pulisic penalty incident, why not change the rule and have the player who draws the foul be the one to take the penalty?
Seen this before, but...
No.
How about you just be a bit stronger and don't crumble when somebody takes the ball or whatever. But I've seen that before. But so what happens if it's a handball? I don't know. Is it a person that crossed the ball or kicked the ball or was shooting? I don't know. No, they just need to be grown up about it.
And say it's mine. The coach said so.
There was a bit of a disagreement yesterday on who was to blame. Everybody was to blame, really, but if I'm taking a penalty and I'm the designated penalty taker and I'm just sitting back watching others take it, I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself, really.
Ian, will United...
Did you see that? Did you see what happened?
No.
So Pulisic is designated penalty taker at Milan. Right. They got 2 penalties in the game that they lost. Was it against Udinese? I can't remember. It was Fiorentina, who beat them. And he's a designated. Fonseca said, he's the guy who takes the penalties. Right. They get the penalty. Hernandez takes the ball. Theo Hernandez. Pulisic stands by, and he takes the penalty. They get another one. He missed the penalty. Yeah. Hernandez misses it. They get another penalty. Tomori runs up, grabs the ball, and gives it to Tammy Abraham. And he takes the penalty. And meanwhile, Pulisic stands at the side. And yesterday's show, I'm stood on the penalty spot.
And he's annoyed, Stevie. And the coach Fonseca's really annoyed as well because he said they know and I know Pulisic's the penalty taker.
Who's the captain of the team? I mean, we saw Conor Gallagher doing it with Chelsea.
Yeah.
Well, that's a.
But my point was
that's a spoken in Wales when the captain decides he's taking it.
Yeah, my point yesterday was that it looks bad in them all. The coach, but also, and I felt quite strongly that it looked really bad on Pulisic as well, because what's he doing? That's what I said yesterday. He stood in the corner eating his candy while the others take the penalty. You have to be strong enough to go and stand there and say, "This is my job, my duty." From the coach is to stand up and take the penalties, and you stand your ground. He's not 18 years old. He's a fully fledged international footballer of some repute. You know, he's one of the big stars for the US. He's playing in Milan. He's played at Dortmund. He's played at Chelsea. You have to have some stomach to stand up there to people like Hernandez and Tammy Abraham, and he did not.
You somewhat understand the first one when it's the captain. I mean, it's still wrong, but you can somewhat understand that. But the second one is, well, it's beyond belief that it actually happened.
Yeah.
There can be no respect in that dressing room between players and coaches. And if the players are doing that...
Or has the coach made it clear enough that that's the case, or he's saying this afterwards?
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy, guys. I mean, they'd have 40-page dossiers about the opposition and all the planning for a game. Don't tell me you don't know who's going to take the penalties. It can't be like that. I mean, that is absolute chaos, isn't it, really? He's the penalty taker. He takes the penalties. Should be as simple as that. And then someone else grabs it and misses. Mad.
I told you this story before with Kenny Dalglish. We were playing somebody at Anfield. I think we were 2 or 3-0 up. Jan Molby's the designated penalty taker. Paul Walsh had scored 2 goals, and Ian decided to let him take it to get a hat-trick. And we walked in. Now, we won the game 3-0 comfortably. We walked in the dressing room after the game, and Dalglish went absolutely mental at Jan Molby. And he pulled a couple of the older guys out as well and said, you shouldn't have let that happen, and you definitely shouldn't have let that happen. You're the penalty taker, you take the penalties.
But then you get Ancelotti, who's like, I don't mind who takes it. They can talk amongst themselves. Anyway.
He hadn't done that from City. And also that he's under a bit of pressure for his job.
Yeah. Ian, will United finish closer to 4th or closer to the relegation spots this season?
The way they're going, closer to the relegation spots. I mean, I just don't think they're a very good team at all, are they? They turn out every time, and it's an ordinary performance. So, you know, there's a lot of talk every day about, you know, is Ten Hag going to be fired? Is he going to stay? But whoever comes in, if they did make a change, you've still got those players and you've still got that culture to deal with at Manchester United. So, I mean, no, I think, you know, being serious about it, I think they will be somewhere in the top half, but probably not top 4.
Ian, let me stay with you for this next question. Rank these international footballing rivalries: England, Scotland, Brazil, Argentina, USA, Mexico, and Spain, Portugal.
Oh, I see. Right, I've got to rank them in order.
Yes.
I think Brazil, Argentina's got to be 1. Spain, Portugal, I think is going to be 4. England, Scotland, 2. What's the other one?
USA, Mexico.
USA, Mexico, second equal, maybe third, I think, probably. Well, I was at the Azteca when the USA won a friendly. I mean, it was a friendly, and the USA beat Mexico. And I better not describe really on a family channel like this the stuff that was being thrown at me with who they assumed was an American. They could hear my voice doing the commentary.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, you guys obviously both played in.
Maybe they'd heard that. Maybe they'd heard that Landon Donovan goal commentary. Ian.
We love a bit of Go USA. Come on.
That's what it was, yeah.
But I wouldn't disagree with that. Brazil. I mean, Stevie and I both played in Scotland-England games, friendlies and qualifiers. It's always been a rivalry, but that South American rivalry is something else, isn't it?
Songs about it and everything. All right, Stevie, as a coach in MLS with a different league calendar than European leagues, what were the challenges during international windows that you encountered?
Well, the problem I had is that we didn't have a deep squad. You know, I was basically relying on 13 players, to be honest. You know, there was no reserve league, and so. Yeah, that was the biggest problem. So even if I only lost a couple of players, it was generally it was the 2 best players I had. So yeah, that was a problem. The biggest problem I had was the Gold Cup. Now the Gold Cup, because American managers never have their best players. They don't choose the starting 11 as it would be in a World Cup qualifier. So what ends up happening is teams like mine, who had a lot of Americans in it, who just weren't quite up there to play for the USA, I ended up losing half a dozen for, what, 2-3 week period. And that absolutely killed us, absolutely killed us.
So the Gold Cup.
Yeah, Gold Cup was the biggest problem.
In Major League Soccer back then, if you had lost 8 or 9, say you'd lost 8 or 9 players, you had a squad where a lot of them were internationals. Would you just still have to get on with it?
Yep. Aye. It would have had to been for any possibility of cancelling a game. It would have had to been something extraordinary.
But you couldn't put 11 players on the field.
Right. Something like that. It would have to be extraordinary. But it never got that bad. But when you're losing, what, 6 of your best players. And you've only got a real squad of 13, you might have a 20, but the other 6, maybe 7, can fill for a game or 2, or maybe come on for 20 minutes. But when they have to have a run of games, just not capable of doing it.
Should Lee Carsley, Craig, try the double pivot of Rice and Bellingham with Palmer playing the number 10 role?
Well, I don't know exactly what he did in the games that he's had so far. One of them was the Republic of Ireland, which he might as well have been playing against 11 Stooges. They're that bad. I mean, seriously, these days. So I can't remember what he did. The other game was, am I right in saying the other game was Finland?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Finland at Wembley.
He made a lot of changes in one of them as well.
Saw a couple of debuts, I think, for the younger players. I don't know, but I don't know what he's going to do, but clearly you'd like to think there's a way trying to shoehorn. Bellingham you'd have to play if it was a qualifier, you know, a big game. If it's a Nations League, probably different. But Bellingham would have to play, and then you have to think this, right, how do you get the most informed player in England, a game changer, assists, goals, how do you get him into this team? And I don't know how, to be honest with you, how we would do that. I think we would know the answer if Gareth Southgate was still in charge. Cole Palmer probably still sat on his backside. But I don't know. Is Lee Carsley going to get this job, Ian?
I think he is, yeah. I think that's the way it's going. I mean, I wouldn't like to say it's by default, but I think he's probably going to win all 6 of these games. They're Nations League games. I mean, England are in the second tier of the Nations League because they didn't take it seriously last summer, so they've gone down. So, I mean, what can you prove from these games against Ireland and Finland? I mean, Greece have done okay in this group so far. We'll see what they're like tomorrow night. But there's no test there, is there? So how can you tell how Lee Carsley would react and how he would manage in a game against an elite country like a France or an Argentina, Spain? Because they're not going to have any games against them before the decision is taken. I mean, there's always this talk about Eddie Howe, but I think he's staying with Newcastle United. So yeah, I think Lee Carsley's going to win the games and he's going to get the job.
The best thing ever happened for England's hierarchy was the Spain winning the Euros, because their manager pretty much went the same path as Carsley. Yeah. So if anybody says, well, why are you doing this? All they got to do is go look at Spain. It's exactly what they did, and they won the Euros.
But it does beg the question that do they actually know what they're doing at the FA?
I think there's only one answer to that.
Because, I mean, let's be honest. They went from Roy Hodgson, they stumbled in on Sam Allardyce. He got
that went well.
Controversially sacked after, or left his duties, whatever one it was, after whatever he was doing. And then they had nowhere to go. And so they went with Gareth Southgate because it was clean for a bit. He did much better than anybody at the FA ever anticipated. So they actually absolutely fell on that one by luck. And then they've looked at the Spanish, as Stevie said, and gone, oh,
we can do that.
They're just, I mean, they're not actually thinking for themselves. They haven't made a proper appointment out of doing the due diligence for years.
Yeah. I think Graham Souness said, Graham, didn't he? I think he said, and I think this is right, it's the easy choice, but it's not necessarily the right choice.
Yep.
All right. Ian, I'll put this one to you because you've been to a lot more stadiums.
I hope it doesn't work, by the way, for England.
For all, stadiums have changed a bit over the years. Which venues have most improved since your first visit, and which stadiums make you miss the old grounds?
Not very many, to be honest with you. Which stadiums changed the most? Well, obviously, you know, a lot of teams that are in different stadiums. I mean, Liverpool's stadium's improved immensely with the new stand. But, you know, the thing we always moan about as commentators is sometimes they build a very posh new stadium with lovely facilities for the media downstairs, but the commentary position where you have to watch the game is actually further away than it was at Anfield. We used to have a great commentary position, you know, right over the halfway line, perfect height. Now it's pretty high. You know, I wouldn't say it's Boeing 747 high, but it is much higher and more difficult. So we tend to judge these things a little bit like that. So what's it like and what's the view like? Do
you know the one thing I was thinking?
I haven't answered the question.
I don't know whether you maybe missed this. So my last 3 years in the Premier League, so that was mid-90s to late 90s, there was a lot of new stadiums built. And the one thing I missed was going to a team. Let's use Derby County as a perfect example. Whenever we used to go to Derby County, as soon as you took a step out the dressing room and stepped on the field, you knew exactly where you were. Because it was unique. And all the stadiums had some sort of uniqueness about them. So you knew, if somebody just parachuted you in and you landed on the ground, took your blindfold off, you'd know where you were. And all of a sudden, in the 90s, all these new stadiums on the outsides of town.
Exactly that.
I mean, if it wasn't for the colour of them, you wouldn't know where you were. Because they just all they were all the same shape.
Job lot.
Oh, just job lot. You only knew where you were because the colour of the seats all the way around the stadium. Whereas the baseball ground in Goodison, Anfield,
Park.
Ayresome Park's perfect.
Yeah, and then we built on the outskirts.
Because that was the very first one I thought of. I played the last season we were at Ayresome Park. Now, I can assure you, there was no luxury involved.
Oh, I know.
And then I landed a few years later playing Middlesbrough, and I'm like, what's happened there?
I tell you one, always springs to mind here for me is the Emirates is a terrific stadium, but Highbury had something about it.
Yeah.
It could only hold about 30,000, give or take, with the clock end and all the history with that football club. But you pulled up to the main doors at Highbury, and what do you call those? They were dressed in the two gentlemen that were
guys at the front,
all dressed up in the front and all the gear, and the houses were here. Literally, all the terrace houses were here. The bus could hardly get up the street because the supporters were right at the door where you went in, and it just felt like a football game.
Did you hang out the window shouting at people?
And the windows are there.
The dressing room backed right onto the road behind where people were going in.
And the pitch was right in front of you.
No,
it was great.
I get it now. Everything's modernised, and that's great. But you drive into these stadiums now. Most of them you drive in underneath. The supporters are outside. It just felt like. It felt like an occasion when you went to some of these grounds because everyone was on top of you. And, you know, baseball ground, Ayresome Park, the list, you know, Upton Park, the list is endless. But Highbury was always one of the best, but it's just too small for the modern game.
We've gone round a circle, Larry, and has one stood out while we've been talking?
I was just thinking when Stevie was talking and he said he walked out at Derby County and he knew immediately where he was at the baseball ground. And the reason I reckon any player would have known exactly where he was is because he'd have been ankle deep in mud. It was the worst surface, wasn't it, Stevie?
Well, it wasn't great, but then a lot of them were the same.
Well, it was still there when I signed for Derby in '99 from Celtic under Jim Smith when they were in the Premier League, and they'd moved to the new stadium at Pride Park. Again, job lot, but it was black and white, so you knew it was Derby. It wasn't red, it wasn't Middlesbrough. But the baseball ground was still there. It hadn't been knocked down. I think it's been knocked down now, but I'm not sure. But it was still there. It was pretty dilapidated, but we used to still go there now and again to play an 11v11 practice match. And even though nobody was playing on it, no supporters were there, nothing happening, the pitch was still had no grass on it. And so if you watch some of these old videos that are hovering around on YouTube from Derby County in the 70s and the 80s, it's amazing what these players did on these mud fields.
Yeah.
Alan Hinton dancing down the wing on that mud. They are amazing.
On his white boots.
Didn't Cloughy sat there all night one night, flooding the surface even more because they had Juventus the next night, and he wanted to stop them playing.
We want justice for commentators, though, Ian. We expect you to have the best facilities and the best position in these new state-of-the-art stadiums, OK?
It's not happening, Kay, I promise you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for sending in your questions.